Okay, people. So today I am joined by Tad Sallee, who is one part of the duo that created the new documentary going postal, The Legacy Foretold. Dad, thank you for your time, man. Appreciate you stopping by. How's everything going?
Kevin, thanks so much for having me on. Jason, my co-producer, is going to be joining us here momentarily. Um, we're thrilled that Going Postal's out in the universe now. It's a pleasure to get to chat with you today. I'm excited to hear your thoughts, what you thought on the film, and we can dive into all the nitty-gritty, and excited to answer some questions that you might have for me.
Yeah, no, it's like it was an interesting one, man, because I remember hearing the controversy about the game, but yeah, I like stopped playing video games a while back. Like, oh man, like I enjoyed video games, man. I had a Commodore 64 growing up, and then moved to the PS1 and 2. But I found as the machines got better and the graphics got better, like the text on screen got smaller. And I get like I've got bad eyesight, so I just couldn't see it. And then games got faster. I remember there was a game, I think Zone of Ender, and shit was so fast. I was like, I don't even know what's going on. So I just had to tap out, man. But I just remember hearing about Postal. So I was intrigued to, just see what all of this was about. And yeah, your documentary did a good job of kind of drawing back the curtain on all of that stuff.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting, and I was going to say you should try getting back into gaming now because it seems like today's video games, especially coming from the PS1 to where we are today, graphics are just outstanding. But there are
Mm.
more accessibility options than you used to have back in 1997. You've got all of the options. So if you want to change the font size from small to big, you can do that. Um,
Okay.
but because yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like going back to like the Nintendo 64, which is the console I grew up with. It's like you don't have those accessibility options, so we're really spoiled today as gamers. Um, Definitely going back and playing those games makes it a little difficult. So
Mm.
it looks like Mr. Jason joined us here.
Hi
Jason,
Yeah.
guys,
how's it
can you
going?
hear me?
Yeah. Jason, welcome to the pod, man. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Sorry about that. I had some computer issues and I had to run down the street to a house nearby my office to get all connected up.
Well, thank you for doing that, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a Friday evening here, so just getting off work. Want to make sure we join for the podcast. I don't know if you started or anything. Did you start here?
We're
Yeah,
rolling right now.
Oh, we're
yeah.
rolling. Is that what the
Yep.
recording 3 minutes and 28 seconds says?
Yeah,
Exactly.
just started.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we're good to
We'll
go
catch you up
now.
to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Dad, it was interesting because at the time I remember I emailed Sony because they were doing the a new console. I think it's the PS3. There was word about the PS3 coming out, and I'm like, yo, will it have better accessibility functions? Right? Will you be able to change the size of the font and all of this? They responded with, we won't know until it comes out. Which
Oh
I'm just
man.
like, all right, I think I'm done. I think I'm done.
Yeah, I don't think the PS3, I think it was like mostly the PS4 and especially this generation of consoles that have more accessibility functions. Like me and Jason were watching this clip of this guy who was blind, completely blind, playing Street Fighter, like competing
Oh
in
yeah,
Street
that was
Fighter,
wild.
but he's using
Okay.
audio cues. Like Sony and Xbox have these peripherals that you can use nowadays for like people who, don't have the accessibility to play with a controller, or who have bad eyesight or who have headphones. I always thought that that would make a cool documentary too. Kind of showcasing that whole aspect of gamers for those who can't necessarily play like normal people would be kind of interesting.
Mm.
Just
Yeah,
add it
I
to our
mean, if you
list,
can
Jason.
play well, because I've tried the only games there was a game on the Commodore called Desi, right? And it was this little egg, and it was like Indiana Jones, and you'd go do these adventures. And I liked that kind of game. I was so bad at fighting games, driving games, like first person shooters were a nightmare because it was back in like you hang out with your friends, and so everyone would just take a turn and you play until you die. And with a first person shooter, there'd be some fucking sniper somewhere in the distance that I couldn't see, and straight away I'm like, boom, I'm out. And then you're just sitting around watching other people play, and I'm just like, yeah, this ain't fun.
It's fun watching sometimes, right? Not if
There's
not
a saying.
early.
There's a saying. It's called "Get good, Kevin. Get good."
Man, like with driving games, I would always end up going around the wrong way of the track. I don't even know how it would happen, but I'd end up just going the other way around. And with fighting, I'd be trying to pull off the moves, and I'm facing the wrong direction. So I finally pull off a move, but I'm not even facing my opponent. And as much as I tried, I just could not get those games down.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I
Back
was.
in,
Are you in? Have you played Postal avidly? Is that a game that's something of your interest?
No, I never played it, but I just remember hearing the controversy.
Yeah.
So that's what piqued my interest. Also, I mean, your publicist AJ, like AJ's fantastic, man. So like I've worked a lot with AJ, so if anything she's covering, I know it's going to be good and interesting. So it's just like, yeah, she hit me up, and I was like, all right, let's do this.
That's awesome.
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having us. I mean, despite whether or not you've played Postal or not, it's just such an integral part of gaming history. And I think most gamers or people in the gaming industry have heard of Postal. And, that's a huge reason why, we're very excited to make a full-fledged feature documentary about a video game that's so integral to gaming history. So, I know me and Tad, we weren't like huge players of Postal. We didn't spend hours upon hours playing it, but we both were familiar with it, and we played it enough to understand what we were getting ourselves into. So that was super fun to, meet Mike J and hang out with Vince and just kind of get to know what we were getting ourselves into, especially because they were literally our neighbors in Tucson. So it was really cool for all of us to get hooked up and get this project off the ground almost 5 years ago at this point.
Right, because you were just looking to do a web series at the beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tad can talk all about that.
Yeah, we wanted to do a web series, but the story was too rich for us not to make a documentary in a short story, to be honest.
But what was the fault, like doing a web series? Why did you kind of think, let's do that?
Yeah, I approached Jason because we were working on a TV show or a web show at the time, and it was a formula that we got really used to, and Jason was directing, and I was just hopping on as assistant director. But I saw that there could be some kind of cool method if we take that same ideology and make it about video games. So kind of like MTV Cribs, but for video games, where we would go into these like developers studios, and you get the insights and you see like the nitty gritty of what goes on behind the scenes. The problem with that, because we went to E3 in 2019, we tried to meet a bunch of developers, and video game developers are pretty closed off. Like viewing companies don't really want you to see the nitty gritty behind the closed doors, unless it's like an indie team, which made sense for Running with Scissors because it's like, at the time and right now, it's just Mike and Vince, and then the rest of their team is remote. So that's why it also became more of a discussion on Mike and Vince too, not just about Postal, because we were, nobody was saying yes to us going to their studios. So it kind of all just like fell into the right place, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? Because, just starting the podcast, like you hit up studios and the distributors and be like, yo, can I get some screeners on your film? No one wants to fuck with you. Right. And so it's just like you have to just do stuff and build and build and build and build. And then if someone sees what you're doing and thinks, okay, we'll send them our films, right? And then someone else is like, oh, if they're sending them the films, we'll send them our films. And it's slowly, you get momentum and go like that. But yeah, at the beginning, trying to get that access, it's not the easiest of things. So I can imagine.
It wasn't. I mean, there's tons of people out there that, have a project afoot and thinking about and conjuring up ideas of, I'm going to make this movie, this documentary, I'm going to make this video game. And, we realize it's not until you actually do it on your own, especially if you don't have any major type of backing or resume that's involved in the industry, to get that kind of attention. And so, again, me and Tad went to E3 thinking we were going to create all these networks and talk to all these people and get all these projects lined up. And we walked away realizing that we just needed to make the movie on our own. And, luckily we ran into Mike J and Vince, who were just open enough to allow us to follow them with cameras for 5 years to make this, 2+ hour documentary 5 years later. So it worked out. I mean, it's easy to say I'm going to make a movie. It's very difficult to actually do it. And that goes with anything, that's part of life. A lot of people are dreamers, but to actually dream and follow through with your dreams, it's a whole different ball game. So it was really awesome for us to finally put this project together and make it, come to life. It's crazy to have this guy packaged and and a physical, tangible copy to say we did this. It's wild, and it paid off. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because this is your first feature-length documentary, right?
First, but hopefully not the last.
Yeah. No, I mean, we both are from film backgrounds. We're both huge gamers, avid cinema enthusiasts, and yeah, I mean, we worked around the industry enough, whether it's weddings or music videos or short form content and YouTube series and whatever. So we had enough resume between the two of us to gain the trust of Mike J and Vince to say, hey, this is what we've done and this is what we want to do as our end product. And they're like, cool, you guys do good work. Let's work on a project together. So it really worked out.
Now there is, you getting people on board with something, but then there is the actual creating the thing, right? And being your first big project. What was that emotional journey like for you guys? How did you feel about getting the reins to tell this story, right? Something no one else had done. So it's just yo, you're going to be the first, right? And this could be the launch pad for more stuff for you. So you don't want to fuck it up. But have you done anything like this? What are the constraints? What are the pitfalls? How did that all feel going in for you? Tad, maybe you start things off.
Yeah, I think so. For me, I didn't really envision the project, and Jason, I think you too. We didn't envision the project to be as, what I'll say, streaming platform worthy originally. Yeah, we wanted to make a documentary, but we didn't think that we were going to be, putting in the efforts that we were going to be, at least at the start. This was going to be something that might be living on YouTube. As a documentary, but it's not going to be as cinematic that you might find on Netflix or Amazon. And then throughout production, that started to change, and we started to really escalate the production value of the film, getting in more finances to produce the film with executive producers. So it all kind of just started the groundwork for what was going to be something that was more of a cinematic adventure, I'll say. And so for me, going back to like when we started and to where we are now, like Jason was saying, it's like crazy to think that, you know, this film was like out on Apple, it's out on Amazon. We've been getting great reviews. Like I didn't think that we would ever be here with as good of a response that we've had from audiences and the quality of what the film looks like from when we had started. So that for me is kind of, I think, you know, personally where I'm at with, you know, how we grew throughout the film.
Yeah, and then, you know, just to kind of go off of what you were asking, I mean, it was a massive emotional journey to get this off the ground. I mean, we have 40 plus interviews and tons of people that we talked to get on board with this project. It's not easy to convince anybody to do an interview for a feature length documentary or get a crew together when you're independent, low budget. But you know, we made it happen. We traveled to several locations across the U.S. We did numerous interviews, you know, remotely. And for a lot of the industry heads, you know, some people that we were well aware of, well before we were even touching cameras or barely touching cameras, were involved. And it was really cool to see these people, you know, get in front of a camera and film an interview for our documentary. And I think it's just a lot of it, just you know, being as professional as you can and making them feel good about being involved. You know, transparently, a lot of these people did it for free. You know, it would be hard to get 40 plus industry figures from all different types of backgrounds all over the world to do this for an enormous amount of budget. But a lot of people just did it out of the love of believing in our project and realizing that they just wanted to give a little time to something that we were very passionate about.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, no, that's really good. Boy, yeah, it's definitely tough. Like when you were putting the interview kind of part together, like what was the kind of thought behind the interview? Because what I found was interesting was that it didn't seem that you were necessarily trying to lead what was being said. And sometimes you'll watch a documentary and the people being led into saying certain things and going with a certain narrative, which, you know, it's just like, it's all well and good, but what do they actually feel about this? What are their views on this thing? So, you know, what was your experience with interviewing and how did you kind of come to the thought of what we have in this end product?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just kind of getting together a general questionnaire in advance to understand how to craft the interviews. I think a lot of times they came into it with sort of a general kind of feel or general kind of voice of what they had to say about Postal or what they had to say about, you know, our general direction. And we get them warmed up, we make them feel good and comfortable to talk on camera, and then we just slowly kind of, you know, typical interview style. You start broad, and then you just kind of start focusing in, and you kind of lead them down the path that they're comfortable talking about, you know, whatever talking points you feel, you know, more or less manipulate them in a creative aspect to get them to say the anything that works for your documentary, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's a very thorough and fun process. I mean, everybody's different. You're catering to different personalities. I mean, some people are more than willing to answer every question you ask. Other people seem a little, you know, maybe they're pressed for time, or they can only respond to certain questions, or they have a certain perspective. So, I mean, I think what was very advantageous of what we did during our process was to just get as much content as possible. What hurt us on the back end was we had thousands of hours of footage. And so we just have to really figure out how to craft and hone in on our voice and what we're trying to say with the documentary. It worked out well. We had a huge backlog of content, you know, retroactively. You know, I think we probably could have like been maybe a little more laser focused, but you know, I think that's part of the growing pains and process as filmmakers. You kind of like look back and understand what worked and what didn't work. And every interview, I think we got better, and every interview we figured out how to, you know, make it cater to what we were trying to say for the documentary.
And I'll add to that it's impossible to guide or lead to make Mike or Vince say something that you want. They're going to say what they want. Like, this is their story. They have very, very intense personalities, which is good. It was great fit for the film. So there was no saying, hey, listen, can you say this? You know, something might not be true. Like, they're very honest people, which is in a benefit to us and to the film. Like, because we wanted that honest truth. Like, you watch the first 20 minutes with Vince and you're like, this guy is not cutting through any of the bullshit. Like, he's to the point. So you know what he's saying when you're watching the film. It's all honest and trustworthy. As far as like a bias in the film, we wanted to not take a stance on video game violence. So we interviewed multiple people throughout the industry that might have just different opinions on video game violence. So we interviewed a bunch of parents who are experienced to violence, especially like video game violence. And then we interviewed developers. So you kind of have that juxtaposition between different opinions, and we didn't want to take a stance there. So letting the audience, when they see the film, they can make the decision based on what they hear, what they see. And I think we did a pretty good job. Obviously, audiences are going to have their own different reactions to the film. But that was kind of our stance in going from the start of the film.
Yeah, I don't think it was like leading in any way or anything. Like, it just seemed that it was something that's giving you information and you decide, are you with it? Are you not? Like, what are your views on this thing? Which is, I think that works because it's such a subjective thing, right? It's like spicy food. I remember taking a friend out and I knew she didn't like spicy food. So I was just like, oh, you just get the lemon herb option. And she took a bite into it and was just like, oh my God, my mouth's on fire. I'm just like, it's lemon and herb, kid. Well, you know what I mean? But to her, that was crazy spice. You know what I mean? So that's the same with violence, right? Like, someone's going to get mad, bent out of shape over something that you might think is pretty pedestrian. Make that decision. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, no,
But
100%. It's all subjective.
yeah, I mean, what are your, like, do you have any kind of specific views on, what were the type of games that spoke to you guys? I mean, Jason, what kind of stuff did you like to play?
Growing up, I played a lot of a wide array of games. I would say a lot of RTS games growing up, like Age of Empire and StarCraft and Warcraft. I played a lot of Blizzard games, inclusive of like Diablo and stuff. I liked a lot of the kind of darker type of games, the demonic games, or anything that had a lot of ultra violence. So this really, this Postal attracted me to wanting to be a part of the storytelling, just because I love the violence and any aspect of storytelling that involves sort of something different, something kind of outlandish. So, for me, video games growing up in marriage with cinema, I've always just been a fan of just something that I guess was a little bit more sad, a little bit more grim. Now, that doesn't necessarily coincide with Postal, but Postal has a lot of aspects of violence. The interesting thing about Postal is it really doesn't have a story. You kind of go out and do your thing and just kind of free roam, which, I found later in my video game enthusiasm to be more interesting, to play games that are just, free roam. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of interest in general of just wanting to be a part of this project because I was familiar with it. I mean, just it goes down to like just FPS type of games like Duke Nukem and Doom, where there really wasn't a ton of story. You just go out and you kick ass and you just take names. And I think Postal is very similar to that as well.
Was like Grand Theft Auto something that kind of spoke to you as well?
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing GTA 3 when I was in like 5th grade, and remember we had to hide the game from our parents, and it was just so much fun to just run around and do whatever you wanted. So I mean, there's, especially at that time, there's a huge appeal, through the 90s and 2000s, when violence in video games became more of a forerunner of just how the industry was kind of taking things, especially with things weren't pixelated anymore. Things became more graphic, more realistic. And so people wanted to take advantage of that. So you saw this slew of just ultra violent video games come out. And I definitely was a kid that just enjoyed watching heads being popped and just all sorts of weirdness happening. And, again, I didn't play Postal when I was younger, but a lot of similar games. I remember just enjoying even just reading about video games. I mean, when you're a kid, right, you can't afford every video game out there. You took your allowance money and you bought what you could, and then you wish you played other games. And, I remember as a kid wanting to play Postal and just never having the opportunity. You kind of just focus on the games that you can play, read about the other games. But, as an adult now, I have the ability to play, for the most part, whatever game that I want. And so that's it's really awesome to being able to go back now and playing games like Postal 2, which I had to obviously play in order to understand the content that we were creating. And I was just like, damn, this is a great game. I wish I played it as a kid. And, thinking back, I was like, man, this game wouldn't have been appropriate for me to play as a kid, but I would have absolutely loved it. It's one of those games where you close and lock the door and turn off the lights and just hope your parents aren't aware that you're playing these weird games that definitely are really over the top.
Mom walks in on you peeing on somebody in Postal 2. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I remember my grandma bought me Grand Theft Auto 4 because my dad wouldn't. And I found Grand Theft Auto 3 at a garage sale. I've always been more of a Nintendo kid. So those games were always very much so out of the ballpark for me. Family wouldn't let me play them, but I found a way. And I always wonder if, because I've been a console player. I mean, clearly you look behind me, I play pretty much everything, but I've always been a console player. I've always liked to be able to play on my TV. So I never got into PC gaming, but I always wonder if Postal had that trajectory that Grand Theft Auto did, because they came out literally within a month of each other, Grand Theft Auto and Postal 1. But Postal stuck to PC, and it didn't really start coming out onto consoles until 2023, 2022, when they came on Switch and a PS5. And those are the only two consoles that it's on, but it's Postal Brain Damage and Postal Redux. They did announce Postal 2 Redux, which I don't know if that's going to come to consoles. I assume it might. But I always wonder, maybe Postal 2 would have had this leg up like Grand Theft Auto if it was on consoles. But unfortunately, Microsoft does not like running with scissors. They're not on any Xbox consoles and probably won't ever be. But it's interesting because it's on a Nintendo console, but it's not on Xbox. It's wild. But I'm here for it.
Interesting. Yeah, that is the one thing about the documentary, right? Because as you said, Vince and Mike are they're just talking, right? There's and they're saying things that you're like, huh, right? That wasn't a good choice, but they're just like, yeah, that's what we did, right? Which is great because you are then able to buy everything. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you'll watch things and you can tell people are holding things back, right? That they don't want to admit to some of their mistakes, and they're just, everything I did worked out. And you're like, I did it though, right? But Vince and Mike are just, just laying everything open, which is interesting. And so it's kind of not going the console route. Yeah, that probably definitely hurt them. But there's so many things that they did that you're just like, yeah, that might not have been the best move, but it's just part of their lexicon. It's part of the things that made them who they are. And, the game, what it is, which is interesting,
Yeah, I mean, they were very honest and transparent. I mean, he literally told us, you know, if you want me to be in your documentary, I'm more than happy, but don't edit anything I say. Just let my voice be heard. And, you know, we had to edit a few things out.
Yeah.
But no, the point being is they were very open and transparent. They didn't shy away from anything. When they were talking about something that they didn't feel good about, or something that hurt them in their career or their franchise of dealing with Postal or development of Postal, they spoke on it. And when something went right, they were very proud of it. So it was great to just kind of hear their roller coaster of history, and with just an open voice and full transparency. I just don't think you get that a lot from people. You know, I think a lot of these major developers, they want to shy away from the negative. They want to shy away from things that didn't go right. They want to talk about why they're the biggest, the best, and their awesome ratings. And Vince and Mike, they told us everything, and it was very helpful for our story.
Yeah, they're probably the only developer that we'll ever talk to that's as honest and as open as Mike and Vince are, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know though, because I feel you did such a great job here that other spots might think, yeah, why not? Let's just open shit up like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it is a proof of product, right? Because, you know, starting, like as you said, going to E3, trying to get people's interest, and no one's biting because they're probably going, what have these guys done? Why should we, you know what I mean, give our time to people that haven't done anything where this probably ain't going to go anywhere? But now you put this together, right? People can see that you've done such a good job, and you were able to get all of this interesting stuff out of Vince and Mike, that it could definitely open up those floodgates to other people going, hey, that worked. Let's get these guys telling our story, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's something to be said about having a proof of concept at this point. Maybe there are other developers in the future when we shop this around. They're like, man, maybe it is a good idea if we're just honest. It makes for a better story. And you know, something I've noticed with like Netflix, for example, some of these documentaries you watch, you see some of the people they interview talking about things that you never think you would hear a voice from, especially when it's, you know, perceived as negative or a perspective that you didn't think you would hear from. You know, people really do open up when you have that backing and you have that proof of work. So yeah, I mean, you know, maybe we'll run into developers that are more interested in working with us because they see something like Postal and they're like, man, I actually want to be honest about this and that, and tell this story of when I wasn't feeling great. Because let's be real, I mean, when you tell a story, you want the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, that's what makes a story. If everything went right and everything felt good and everyone got amazing ratings, where's the story? You need the trials and the tribulations. You need the conflict. And, you know, I think in the future, moving forward, that's the kind of stuff that me and Tad are looking for. We want to be able to create and craft stories about video games where there are hardships, where there are difficult moments. So no, I appreciate you making that comment. I really do hope that that's the case moving forward.
Yeah, one of our taglines for the film was bad stories make bad decisions make good stories. We never ended up using that tagline for like posters or anything like that, but it's very true. I mean, you gotta be entertaining, and people unfortunately like to see the bad. Like the bad is entertaining because it makes a good story. If it's all good and mushy, then it's like, okay, like then it's just a show all about how great Running with Scissors is. And throughout production, we actually found like the Kimber Gill section, Jason did, and we were always looking for a section because we had something originally that didn't quite work. It's in the deleted scenes. It's called Parents of Murdered Children, but instead we found this whole scene of Kimber Gill, which is known for being a fan of Postal, and he also concurrently shot up a college in 2006 and killed one girl and then injured others. So it's an unfortunate story, but it's a story in the Postal legacy, and we wanted to include it because it's also controversial. the film's already controversial.
Mm.
And we needed something that was gonna keep you watching, right? Like, we don't want you to pause the film. We want you to watch all of it. It's an unfortunate story, but it makes for great television.
Well, I think also because, you know, it's a fact that people would talk about violence in games being the touch point for violence in real life, right? To kind of not even address it feels like a little dishonest. You know what I mean? So it was definitely a good thing, I think, including that in there. But it is one of those odd things, right? Because people go, oh, you know what I mean? People are playing violent games, so that's going to make them want to go and do violent things. It's like when Jill Biden was trying to ban rap music back in the day. You know what I mean? Being like, oh, you're listening to violence and da-da. But it's just, I remember as a kid, you had the Tom and Jerry cartoons, right? And you've got Tom dropping pianos on Jerry and just all of this, but it never made you go, you know what? I'm going to drop a piano on Steve. Let's see how that goes, right? Like, there's, watching violence is one thing, but I think what people never want to actually address is mental health. And that's the real issue when it comes to school shootings and, these mass things that happen. It's like the person involved usually has a mental health issue, you know? So it's just like, it's not really games, it's not really music, it's not really movies. Like, those people would do that thing regardless. They just need something to trigger them, and literally anything could trigger them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, elephant in the room. The United States is unfortunately very well known for school shootings, and unfortunately, I think it's become sort of a hill a lot of people want to die on, and for a lot of people that are mentally unstable and dealing with a lot of stuff. And I think they see other people that have done things like this, and they want to make a name for themselves. They want to become infamous. They want to have their Wikipedia page when they're dead and gone. It's like unfortunate two birds with one stone. A lot of these people don't want to live. They don't want to continue on with life. And so they take care of that by, going to a school and shooting it up, knowing that there's going to be an end, all the while becoming infamous for it. It's really sad. It's really unfortunate. It is something we address in our documentary. It's very unfortunate that people choose to go about these actions, but that is the reality. I mean, you look at Columbine, those kids use Doom as sort of like a training program for shooting up schools, whether it's, they did it strategically or for fun. Either way, they used a video game in place of trying to commit these atrocious actions. And same with Kimveer Gill. He was a big fan of Postal. I don't think it's a direct correlation that Postal made him go shoot up a school, but I think the senseless violence in the games probably perpetuated his mental instability. But that goes with a lot of people. I think it's a very small percentage of people, but there are definitely people out there that watch violent video games or play violent video games and watch violent movies, and it just makes them feel like it's okay to commit crimes and do these things. And again, it's said in the documentary, it's more people than ever have been playing violent video games, and statistically it's non-existent for people that you can actually track that correlate directly to committing violent actions because they play violent video games. But it's something that should be talked about. And I think the point of our documentary is, whether or not you feel one way or the other, it is something that should be discussed. You should talk to your family about it. You should talk to your kids about it. You should let them understand that this isn't real life and these actions could be committed in real life and there's real consequences. And those consequences are dire and they're not good for society. They're not good for your peers or family. But yeah, I mean, it gets a little dark in our documentary, but I mean, it's something that I think was very very needed in the larger story of what we were trying to say as a voice.
But I think that's why it was really interesting having oh gosh, who was the journalist?
Robert
Stephen Kent, Robert Brock Wilbur.
I think it was. Hold on, I've got the sheet up here. It was Stephen Kent.
Stephen
Kent, the historian, because you know he's talking about like the fact that I thought it was funny, right? I like the violence is goofy, it's fun. Do I think it's good for little kids? No. And I think that's fair. You know what I'm saying? It's just like there's a lot of things that are fun and good, but probably not the best for kids. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't have to be this should be banned. It's just like, no, let's just, ensure that little kids don't fuck around with it. You know what I mean? It's like alcohol can be enjoyable, but you don't want a 6-year-old knocking back a pint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. And I mean, it goes completely the other way as well. People play games like Postal and they find solace in it. They enjoy playing it because it is a way for them to lose themselves in their own world or in the world of Postal or whatever other video games and entertainment, to get through tough times, to have a type of release, or to just simply enjoy for entertainment. A lot of Postal fans that we've met are, typically very introverted. They're very passionate, and it is really awesome to see how much it's influenced them in a positive manner as well. And I think that just goes into human psyche. I mean, you can put a number of things in front of somebody and you can perceive it in a million different ways. And statistically, it seems that most people, when they play Postal, they just know it for entertainment and they enjoy it. And if anything, it makes them feel better. But yeah, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, there is probably a small sect of population that sees it otherwise. But I think, Postal often gets cornered and seen as the poster child of all this controversy. But at the end of the day, I think it's just about understanding violence in media and how that's portrayed and how that's perceived. But it was great to just be able to interview people from all sects of what you would, I guess, stereotype as being, whether you're a fan or someone that hates the game or loves the game. There's just so many different perspectives and points of views from just this little indie game that we made a documentary on. It was really fascinating. I mean, humans are very palatable, malleable with their minds. And it's really cool to kind of see how you can take it in a positive manner too.
Yeah. And to your point, Kevin, Stephen Kent was a great historian for us because he's objectively got to talk about all of this. He's similar to like me and Jason. Like, we don't take a stance on video game violence. We don't take a stance on if Postal's bad or good. Like, he laid it all out. Like, he saw both sides, and that's pretty rare in the industry from the people that we interviewed. It was either Postal is bad, or just violent video games are bad, or Postal's awesome, Postal's great. So it was really nice to be able to get Stephen. Stephen wrote The Ultimate History of Video Games, so he's a very well, and then you'll see this in the film, very well thought out. He's very knowledgeable about video games. And so we always felt like we needed somebody that could be that kind of like voice of reason. And he does a really good job. He's pretty well known in the industry. Definitely check out his books if you haven't. The Ultimate Histories of Video Games, Volume 1 and 2, both really good reads for your audience to check out.
Yeah, he definitely was a good counterbalance for like Robert Kofi, who
Definitely.
did not seem to like Postal at all.
Unfortunately, no. And it's funny because every time we do screenings of the film, especially with like Running with Scissors employees, like they'll boo, they'll chant, because
Mm,
like, I mean, arguably what he's saying is like very, very intense. And I mean, we did ask him to be transparent. We did ask him for like proof of all of this. And I was always telling Jason, our job as filmmakers, but also as documentarians, is we're journalists. So let's try to do our homework and try to get like validation of all this. Unfortunately, we didn't get any of the proof in the pudding, as far as like, let's see those emails, let's see all of that. You'd think you would back it all up if you had it, but unfortunately, it just wasn't being provided. But it added a really good another layer right into the film, another like controversial layer of running with scissors against another person. And I mean, it was great for us. It added more intensity. It added some engagement, some excitement. And when your audience is reacting like that audibly in a theater, that's good. Like, that's good.
mm,
That's what you want to hear as like producers, as long as it's not like people snoring. Like, you don't want to hear that.
no.
But people engaging, it's great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing being, like, I imagine he probably did get emails and stuff, but that's just with anything, right? If you put anything out, there's gonna be someone that's like, I think you should die, right? And it is just when you can hide behind a username, people will say anything. Like, now, will they ever back that up? 99.9% of those people would never even say boo to you if you cross their path in public. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just like an online death threat. How much weight does it really have? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And it
But
was a lot harder back in the 90s too. Like, you
oh
didn't have the
god,
internet
yeah.
as accessible now. Like, you can look up people and their username and find somebody. Like, nowadays, you find their username, you can probably find out who they are in like 20 seconds. So people are a little, I think, less
Yeah,
inclined to do that nowadays than they would be.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. He did seem that like which was the irony of him was that hating on the game, right? That's being controversial. He's doing it in a way to be controversial, which was very ironic. You know what I mean? Because it's just like you could just go, not my kind of game, right? Like if you like shooting things, and you'll probably love this, but this not my kind of thing. I'm more of a just cause or FIFA kind of like you could say that, but it's just like, oh, this is worse than box cipher. You know what I mean? It's just like you're trying to be controversial, you're trying to get notoriety, which is kind of ironic, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said when a game like Postal causes such intense reactions, and that's part of the appeal for the series and us creating a documentary on Postal. You know, Robert Coffey, after all these years, he's still said, you know, this is the same load of shit I played X amount of years ago. Some people are gonna love what you make as art, and some people are gonna absolutely hate it. And you know, like I was saying earlier, if everyone absolutely loved it, I think it would be a lot less interesting, in my opinion. So it was really cool to get that perspective from Robert Coffey. You know, like Tad was saying, getting those reactions in the theaters, those actual, you know, out loud reactions of people booing or upset or whatever. Like I that's what I want to hear. You know, I want to hear people laugh. I want to hear people scoff. I definitely don't want to hear people snore, but you know, it's hopefully, you know, people enjoy any piece of art you make in a multitude of different emotions. I mean, that to me is the most satisfying feeling of creating anything, is just getting those reactions. And I'm sure Running with Scissors same way when they created Postal. They probably got a huge kick out of people coming at them and saying negative things and being upset. I mean, you can imagine, when you have politicians and the Supreme Court and being sued and, all these like really intense reactions to their game probably fueled the fire for them, and good for them for standing up for themselves and having a voice and saying something back.
Yeah, well, I mean, just Vince talking about it at the beginning, talking about like he liked the phrase going postal, so he thought, let's make a game using that, right? It was just courting controversy, but then in courting controversy, trying to create something that also works as an art piece as well. So yeah, it was definitely, as I say, interesting, because we get to see just all of this, and find out how it all transpired and everything like that. Like I didn't even know there was a Postal film. So when you got to the Yui Bowl section, that was just like, what? Like, what is going on here? That was super interesting. Like, what
Well,
did you
that's good
think
to hear. That's awesome. Because I love to hear that, because like I want people to be able to see this film and be like just shocked that this happened, or like have no idea that any of this happened. For me and Jason, interviewing with a bull was definitely like, I always joke around, it's like a bucket list item. Yeah, he makes bad movies, but like me and Jason watched a lot of his films growing up. I arguably watched a lot more once we started production on this film, but they're like guilty pleasure movies, right? We would always like have conversations about like what movable movie is like your favorite, what's your least favorite, like what's the best in his catalog. But yeah, the Postal movie is an interesting one. It arguably shouldn't exist, but it does. I definitely encourage you to watch it. It's better if you have a couple of beers. I tell the story, but we showed our crew the film before we started production, and I think all but me and Jason fell asleep, maybe. And it's not because it's a boring film; it's because I think everybody got too drunk at that point. Uwe Boll was so cool. We had such a great time chatting with him. He's very down to earth. He's been very supportive of our film. He's been helping us promote the film, which is exciting. He's introduced us to his partners who we're talking about potential Russian deals now. So like having his assistance, and not only that, but like I talked to Zach Ward. We keep in some communication with the rest of the cast. So it's really cool, and it's opened up a lot of doors for us. And like Zach Ward was always like, I watch Christmas Story every year at Christmas. So being able to interview Scott Farkas was like so cool to me. Being able to like meet the person that is the actor. And it's opened up doors for us. And hopefully it opens up more doors for us to be able to produce more films like this. But like you said, this is kind of showing what we can do. Give us another IP that, is even more well-known than Postal, and see what we can do with that. And with an even bigger budget, I don't know, who knows what we'd be able to tackle. But we made this on a pretty low budget for what we were able to do. So,
well, yeah, I mean, when you look at the games industry it's changed so much from like back in the day playing a Commodore 64, right? It's become this crazy thing, but you have so many of these like game houses that don't exist anymore, or are being bought out by someone else. And you know what I mean? Like, so there's so many potential stories because of that shifting climate. So I think like if you maybe approach some of those places, you know what I mean? Like there's mad potential for stuff, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there that are just waiting to be told. And hopefully me and Tad are the forerunners of telling some more stories that are similar to this. You know, half the fun is hunting down these stories and finding them and telling them to the world. One of my favorite, I guess, compliments that we kind of get from Postal fans or just anyone that watches this documentary is like, man, I played this game for 10, 15 years or whatever. I didn't know half this stuff. So just doing our due diligence and digging into the treasure trove of history and presenting that to people. I mean, to me, that's one of the most exciting experiences is watching a documentary or a piece that teaches you something and you walk away and you're like, huh, I learned something from that, or that's something new that I learned. And
Yeah.
I think that's the best part about, you know, this genre of filmmaking is, you know, documentaries can teach you something that you absolutely had no knowledge about. So hopefully we can continue to do that with other video game properties. And, you know, I don't want to seclude us to just video games. Hopefully it's just any type of story out there that would be just as entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's so much, right? There's so many different things that could get explored, so which is great. You know, like what I thought was so crazy here was when we learn about the whole Postal movie and how what Vince and Mike thought it was going to be to what it actually became, right? And you just think, well, that probably, you know, I mean, taught them a valuable lesson. And then we go into the making of Postal 3, and you're like, oh no, it kind of happened again.
Yeah, I mean,
And
sometimes life is full of hard lessons that you repeat for whatever
yeah,
reason, you know. And good on them for staying alive and you know, being around. But yeah, I mean, that's just part of their personalities. They're very trusting and open, and sometimes it you know, arguably bites them in the butt, and other times it works out for them. I mean, handing off a piece of property that you created for someone else to not take advantage of, but I guess to create their own story or perspective on it. It's tough. That's part of letting your baby go. And you know, I don't want to toot our own horn, but I feel like in this case, them allowing us to tell their story in a film format, I think we did right by it, and we did a great job at telling that story and making a piece that I think they're proud of and we're proud of. You know, going postal brain damage. I think that's a great example too. That worked out for them. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Life is all about taking risks. And we took a risk working on this project, and they took a risk working with us on this project. And their entire story is about taking risks. And I think that's, you know, half the entertainment.
mm. Well, I mean, that is the crazy thing, right? After such bad experiences with Postal 3 and the Postal movie, that they still were open to letting you guys do this, where you just think after those experiences they could be a bit more closed off, or being like, all right, we want final edit, okay, we want to see, you know what I mean, like the you know, the footage at every stage, like we want to be able to take this. It could have been that, right? So the fact that they didn't become that is kind of crazy, and great.
Yeah, I mean, we were always friends with them first and foremost at the very start. Like, we became pretty close with them. We traveled to PAX East with them, went to Boston. So, like, we built a pretty close knit like relationship with them over the years. And so, we always wanted to be transparent about, you know, our intentions when we were making the film, and we let them know, like, hey, this is going to be an unbiased tell
Mm.
of your story. You know, and here's what we're doing. And so we would send them rough cuts. We would constantly be sending them versions of the film so they could get eyes on it. So we were always doing our due diligence and letting them see. We didn't want to just, you know, hardball this into their face and be like, hey, guess what? Here's a whole Kim Beard Gill section. Here's a whole Robert Coffey section. Like, they knew from the start before we finished the film. But that's, you know, good on them for the not being like, hey, you know, you really got to cut that out. Like, they own the bad and the good,
Yeah.
because it's a part of their history. You know, what's really interesting though is that, like, Postal 3 and the movie, right? Not so great. Postal 4 came out around the same time. as when we were finishing making the film, or in production. So Postal 4 had already been out for a little while, and we were always with the intentions going into this that we thought Postal 4 was going to come out and be this tremendous success. And unfortunately, didn't get the best reviews. It got the worst rated game of 2022. So we had to change our kind of whole story. We thought, okay, this is our moment where Mike and Vince are going to come back. They're going to be recognized in the video game industry. And IGN tore them up, and Metacritic tore them up. But I think in a way it's an even better story because they've been hit and knocked down so many times that it's a story of getting knocked down and back up again. It's a true underdog story, and they're making more games now. They're working on Postal 2 VR, Postal 2 Redux, and they're working on other stuff too. Like, I mean, by all means, they should have been done by now, especially after Postal 4 was rated as the worst game of 2022. But they're still going.
That is I think that is the big thing, right? That people are gonna try and knock you down constantly, but you know, if you believe in what you're doing, just keep going, keep striving, because also, like, maybe the critics don't like it, but the fans seem to enjoy it, right? So because we see that all the time with movies, you know, like, you've got the reviews are terrible from all the critics, but then the fans love it, right? So, you know, you have to look at it like that. It's just when people are reviewing it, how are they reviewing it, right? How are they coming into this thing? Because when watching different films and docs and TV shows and things like that, always try and keep an open mind, even if it's something that technically I feel it's a good chance who knows what's gonna happen. And there's times when, yeah, I'm like, oh fuck, I really like that. And there's other times where I'm like, yeah, it didn't work for me, but I can see how it can work for someone else, you know. But so you have to kind of think how, when IGN and these other things are going, Post 4 is terrible. Is there an agenda there? Like, you know what I mean? How are they entering into that whole thing? There's other people like it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's never give up, never surrender. I love a good underdog story, a story about people, you know, never giving up and just believing in their art and just going on and not stopping. And I think that's part of, you know, I want to say that's kind of our story, me and Tad's internal story of this documentary. We went through a lot of trials and tribulations to get this project done, and it really worked out. I mean, I think our mentality really aligned with the ethos of running with scissors and the Postal franchise, and it worked out. But yeah, I mean, it was really awesome to work on this project. It was really awesome to, you know, get everyone together and tell this story with a true and honest voice, and have everybody on board with it. And you know, it's been awesome to hear fans' reactions. I love it all, you know, whether someone says they love it or we get a review that says, you know, they don't like it because they feel a certain way about Postal or the voice of our documentary. It's all fascinating to see reactions and you know, people just generally reacting to something that you created.
Yeah, being your first collaborative project to get, like, how did you find that process?
With me and Tad?
Yeah, you guys. Like, how was this whole thing to you, and how did it evolve over the course of making this film?
Tad, how do you feel about working with
How do I feel about working with Jason? You know, Kevin, we had lived together and we have worked together and we've known each other for 10 years now. So, like, we've had the bad times. We've also had the good times. Like, we're best friends. So, you know, that's going to be, you know, what you go through. And especially as business partners and collaborators, you're going to go through all those. And those are good conversations to have. Like, you want to be honest and transparent. And we always had those because we would always do it for the best of the film. It was never out of, like, bad intentions. So, and like Jason says, it's always fun to work on a project with like somebody like your best friend, because you get to spend more time together. You get to hang out. Like, we were editing in my office here for literally like 5 hours a night for literally 2 years. So we became pretty close, and it's nice because I would work on something and I would show it to Jason, and Jason would work on something and show it to me, and we could give each other feedback. So you're getting like direct feedback right then and there. And it's nice because you can't make a film, I think, on this caliber by yourself. It's difficult to do. Like, we need each other because there's just so much content to have to answer, so many people to get back to, just so much to do to make this whole well-oiled machine run. And I think we're gonna make some more, and it's a learning process. We now know what are the things that we don't like, what pushes each other's buttons, what can we do better in the future, and how can we do it quicker.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time together, and anytime it got fussy or there was an argument or, we didn't agree on something, it was never out of disdain or anything but for the betterment of the project. And that just kind of just shows the pure passion that we had in creating what we felt was the best project. And yeah, there's some compromises and there's some things that we didn't agree on, but that's part of any process when you're creating something with the team. There's some things you have to let go, and there's some things that you believe in that you have to just, push through. But at the end of the day, it's a voice of a village. We really came together and pushed through and made this happen. I really commend Tad, especially as the lead editor, for really hunkering down and spending a lot of man hours getting stuff done. There's times where either of us weren't able to be present for something, and we had to figure out how to deal with it or to push through or work on something. And we did this. It was basically our job on top of our job. So it was really fun to challenge ourselves and to level up as filmmakers, level up as artists, and do something that I personally didn't think that we were capable of to this extent. And now I know I can do it. I can do it with Tad. We can do it as a team. And I'm super excited for the next project. I mean, it's just, like last night, every now and then I like to revisit my old projects. I have a beer or two and I watch my old music videos and stuff. And it's just kind of fun to kind of like do a little time traveling back to like what you used to do. And I was watching my projects and I'm just like, man, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. That's not the best. I could have, made a different decision here or there. And it's just like really cool to be able to fast forward to where we're at now and just like have this project and be like, yeah, we did a fantastic job. Everything I learned from the past, I applied it here. And, hopefully 5 years from now or however many years from now, we have our next project and we feel the same way. I will never not be proud of what we did with this project. But it's, life is about learning experiences, and you just want to continue to grow and push yourself. And I think this project did that for us.
Oh man, that's tremendous, man. That's great. Like, I guess when you started this, a good few kind of video game technology projects kind of came out, right? Like you had the Tetris film, the BlackBerry film, which are very different to what you did. But in the sense of it's telling a story about a game, a product, a thing, did that in a way influence or give you ideas on storytelling?
Yeah,
Jason, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, we watched
Tad.
both of those projects, and everything that would pop up that was remotely similar, we would watch it and ingest it and get ideas. I mean, filmmaking is very reflexive. The thing that I find fascinating and very attractive to filmmaking is filmmakers like to lend sort of ideas and tips and tricks of what you do that's successful from something that you've watched, and you apply it to what you do now as an artist. You know, it's interesting. I always like say, like, you look at the music industry, for example, and a lot of these artists are like suing each other because their melody sounds the same as this track or that track. And the one thing I love about, you know, the filmmaking community is people will deliberately lift a scene and make it so similar to what they're creating in their own film. And it's like glorified. It's like, oh my God, I remember that like reference from this movie or that movie. And, you know, I think there's a lot of projects that kind of lended itself to this one. We watched a ton of Netflix documentaries, a lot of gaming documentaries that we sat down and we're like, yo, this really worked. Let's add this, or this didn't work. Let's stay away from this. Yeah, that's part of seeing the building blocks of what people have done successfully in the past and just kind of, you know, working off that. I mean, we definitely, you know, for me, I don't think we could have done it without all of our influences and all the projects that we saw that we felt worked, and, you know, combine it with everything that worked for us. I mean, some of the animations you see in our documentary, you know, I wrote it straight from another movie that I really enjoyed, or, you know, there's something that Tad watched and he would present to me and be like, dude, I saw this in this documentary or this movie, like we should do something similar. And that's half the fun, is just ingesting stuff as a fan and making it your own too, and your own project.
I think it helps that video games, especially video game movies, are like more popular now. Like when we started in 2019, they weren't as popular. You have like Super Mario, Minecraft, you've got like upcoming video game movies like all the time coming out. So it's this medium that's like really growing. And so it really helped us because we were on that same trajectory of like video game movie IPs that are coming out. Granted, we're not like, you know, narrative piece, we're a documentary. So we're kind of in our own territory, but still people want to kind of digest a little bit more about the gaming industry. And I think it's a new medium. That's why I like, you know, kind of what we want to do, which is, you know, video game documentaries, or at least in the video game world. At least to start, like Jason said, you know, we'd like to maybe span out and do some other things, but it's a niche that that you don't see a whole lot of, and I think that's good for us because it's a niche that needs to be filled. Like King of Kong was a big inspiration to us when we saw the film, and there's not really like the caliber of like video game documentaries that are being made. There's this show on Netflix called High Score, which is also really inspirational, but they're not as common that you're seeing these days. So hopefully they continue to grow and we could be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you think about the money that goes into video game production now, right? From, you know, back in the day when you'd see, I remember when the first FIFA came out and you're like, oh man, those graphics are great. Wasn't realistic. It didn't look realistic or anything, but you just thought those early graphics in the first FIFA were like, whoa, we've not seen anything like this. And you compare that to FIFA now, where it looks like it's just, you know, footage from the Premier League. You're just like, it's leaps and bounds, right? So you have those evolutions. So I think people think, how did we get here? Right? What led to this? What led to that decision? How did that happen? So there's so much stuff that is fascinating that people would love for that current to be pulled back on. And there's just mad fertile ground to play in if that's what you want to do, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's there's something to be said to be part of a wave that we're, you know, excited to be on board with. And, you know, whether it's video game documentaries or a video game that we're playing that we appreciate. I mean, we're fans ourselves, and we're always going to catch the trends and be a part of something and create our own voice and manipulate something that makes sense for us to tell a story about. It all kind of coalesces into something that we enjoy doing. At the end of the day, it's for us, it's just telling a good story.
Yeah, and you definitely did that with Going Postal, gentlemen. So congratulations on a great job. Yeah, like there's just one thing. There's just one thing I would ask for the next one, right? And it's just with your on-screen text, like if we could throw a background behind it and make it slightly bigger, that would be fantastic. You know?
A little difficult to read.
I mean, there's times when you have white text and it's a light background, and like for me, like yeah, I'm basically registered blind, so just seeing any text on screen is like very like I can't do subtitled films, and you know what I mean. So that's a thing, but it's just like like if there's a solid background behind text, it does make it easier.
Well, if that's one of the major issues that you had, then I'll take it. We'll keep that in mind for the next project, and it's good to keep in mind for people that maybe are hard of seeing. So something that we got to consider for sure, because I mean, white text against light backgrounds, that's not easy on the eyes.
To be fair though, Kevin, so we did 7 subtitles throughout the film. When we sent it to our partners with distribution, they kind of do their own thing, right? So we had always wanted to be more accessible, because Jason, we were having this conversation before you hopped on about accessibility in like video games from the PS1 era to where we are now, and like definitely always wanted to consider those types of issues, and especially for people like you who are hard of seeing. So we'll let our partners know, like, definitely want to be able to see, like, that's one thing. You got to be able to see what people are saying. And for me, I watch subtitles, I can see pretty okay, but I watch films with subtitles all the time, and if it's like not at the size that I want, then I'm picky. So I totally feel that. Yeah, but thanks for that feedback. That's really good for us to know. Anything that we can do, and that's appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having us, man. It's been an awesome conversation, and thorough questions. A lot of questions that I haven't been asked before. So, if I was kind of fumbling on anything, I was just trying to think through some things. We've done a good handful of interviews, and you've asked some questions that went a little deeper than the typical ones. So that's awesome.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad. No, thank you guys for jumping on. Really appreciate that. As I said, I knew it was going to be good because AJ's like repping. And it was just fascinating because, as I said, I'd heard of Postal and I remember the controversy, but I hadn't played it. So I didn't know like how deep it went. I didn't know there was a movie, and you know what I mean? Like they're making the games and they're not necessarily getting the reception that they're hoping for, but they're still doing their thing, right? So all of this was just so fascinating to watch and ingest, man. So hey, if you can make something that's over 2 hours and it's interesting and it keeps you engaged, you've done a great job. So, gentlemen, you've done a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you, Kevin.
That means a lot. I appreciate it. Yeah.
And definitely go and play the games. Give it a shot. I'm curious what you're going to think of them. And then watch the Postal movie. Let me know. Hopefully have as good of a time.
I'm definitely intrigued by what that could be. So I'm gonna keep an eye out for that.
Hit us up for some CD keys. We got you.
Awesome. Hey, well, guys, like when you have your next project and you're ready to talk, please come by the pod and we can have another great conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we appreciate that. Thank you so much for having us.
Definitely. Yeah. And film's premiering in Manchester in August. So, we'll hit you up if either of us decide to go out there for the film festival. Maybe make our way to your side of the pond, Kevin.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Let people know how they can keep track of everything you guys are doing.
Yeah, I mean, at Going Postal Doc for our social media handles, www.goingpostaldoc.com if you want to order the Blu-ray. You can find it on Amazon and Apple TV if you want to watch it digitally. We just released limited copies, signed copies that we had backstocked. So we got those that we're reselling. Hopefully we're going to have it on more digital platforms in the future. But right now, Amazon, Apple, and you can buy a Blu-ray. So hopefully you have people have a chance to watch it. And, occasionally we'll have film festivals as well that you can track and see where you can watch it through our website and our social media handles.
Awesome.
Couldn't have said any better.
What kind of special features did you throw on the Blu-ray?
We've got so many goodies. We've got like over 5 hours of special features. We did a whole commentary. We have a whole sit down with Mike and Vince talking about like what they thought of the film and their experiences of working with us on the documentary. There's deleted scenes. There's a whole segment on Postal Brain Damage, which Jason chatted about earlier, which is a spin-off title that was developed by Hyper Strange. And it's a boomer shooter. So we tried to fit that into the film and it just didn't work out. Like you said, we were already at 2 hours. So pushing it even further was going to max out on I think people's attention span. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in there and hopefully give some good value to people if they decide to buy the Blu-ray. Just hours and hours of content, and it's the highest quality Blu-ray that you can find. It's a BD50, so you're getting really great quality as far as like the bit rate of the film goes, more so than you would on like streaming. So if you're like a collector like myself, definitely go to goingpostaldoc.com, order your Blu-ray, and let us know what you think.
Outstanding. Well, people, all the links will be on the website, so make sure you go check out the Go Postal socials, the website. Get yourself one of those Blu-rays, and you're saying that there's still the signed ones available for people to cop.
Yeah, we just we uncovered about 100 copies, and it's getting close to selling out. I mean, we appreciate everyone's support in buying those. It's been awesome. I mean, we didn't think that we were going to sell as many Blu-rays as we did, but there's a lot of collectors that love Postal out there, so we're happy to supply those.
Tremendous. So act fast if you want a signed one, people. Make sure you do that. Yeah, gentlemen, Tad, Jason, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you, Kevin. Awesome. This was a pleasure. Great to chat with you.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah.
You too.
Hey, you too.
All right.